Fire Sword, Chapter 51, Anankos. The northern border? Crom muttered as he looked up at a map that detailed Ylisse and its neighboring countries. Well, provided Ylisse hasn't provoked anyone too much, Robin grinned, feeling a tad snarky. We're as secure as can be. He, Crom, and Kirito were going over the numbers for their military as it stood. Nearly 6 months had passed since the warriors of Alfheim had gone their separate ways, but life was no less busy for it. Very funny, Robin, Klein said with a roll of his eyes as he walked up to the group. Holding out a scroll for Crom to take, he said, "Here's the latest numbers concerning our recruits to the Air Force." Crom quickly unrolled the parchment, asking Kirito while he read, "And the eastern border? How fares Henry with rebuilding Plegia?" "Airtight on the security, and he's doing well." The black swordsman nodded, his wings shimmering even in the dim afternoon light of the office. "Before you ask, I checked in with Olivia after I visited Henry. Apparently there aren't too many upstarts eager to challenge a man that can toss back hexes easier than he gets out of bed in the morning." "Have you ever tried to get Henry out of bed?" Robin snickered. "It's not an easy task, believe me." "Someone's in a really chipper mood today," Crom said as he peered at his best friend with narrowed eyes. "What are you hiding?" "I'm not hiding anything," Robin answered swiftly, though the smile remained. "I just happen to be in a very good mood." "Hey, Crom," Klein said, sensing where the conversation was heading. "What do you think? How do the numbers look?" "Perfect as always," Crom sighed with a shake of his head as he moved over to his desk, where he pulled out some wax to prepare for his royal signature. "Honestly, I wish I could give you and Cordelia a copy of this damn ring, save us both the trouble of doing all this blasted paperwork." "I don't think Maribel would take to that idea very kindly," Robin interjected as he held out his hand so that he could inspect the report as well. Crom handed the paper over wordlessly so that Robin could read quickly. After a silent moment, the blond man whistled softly and said, "I'm impressed, Klein. How'd you manage to convince so many people to volunteer?" "Hey, I can't take all the credit." The redhead grinned sheepishly. "I might do the talking, but I'd never know where I'm supposed to be if I don't have Cordelia with me." "How is she, by the way?" Kirito asked with a slight frown. "I saw her visiting the infirmary earlier. She didn't look too good." Klein winced, running his hand through his hair. "Seems like Sever was a troublemaker from the time she was little. Poor Cordelia's been feeling pretty rough the last few days." Cordelia wasn't due to deliver her child for several more weeks, but she had spent a fair amount of time bedridden due to the illness caused by the pregnancy. "Do you want me to have Yui visit her after dinner tonight?" Kirito offered. "I'm sure she'd be happy to help." "If she's up for it, I'd really appreciate it." Klein nodded, relaxing a bit. With the war over and done with, Yui had spent most of her study time developing her healing abilities. Apparently she wanted to be a full-time healer instead of just a battle mage, so she spent much time as she could studying the human anatomy and how to mend it in order to refine her healing powers. Before Kirito could formulate an answer, however, there was a knock at the door. "Exalt?" a young voice called in. "That sounds like Jason." Crom frowned. Jason was a page boy that worked for the Elysian ruler, but he was supposed to have retired for the afternoon. Raising his voice, he said, "What is it, boy? You may enter." The door was opened to admit a boy of average stature for a 14-year-old, who bowed as soon as he opened the door. "Pardon the intrusion, my lord," he said nervously. As he straightened, he added, "But there's someone at the palace gates to see the shepherds." "Who?" Robin asked with his head slightly cocked. "Did they have a name?" "Yes, sir, Master Robin." Jason nodded quickly. "He said his name was Anankos." "You are the shepherds?" asked the hooded man. His voice was strong, but not overpowering in its tones. He was nearly unidentifiable due to the cowl he wore and the deep robes that hid his frame, but his hosts did notice the pale blue hair that fell past his collarbone. "We speak for them at the present time," Crom responded evenly. He and the other commanding officers were standing above the gate on the wall, looking down at the lone man with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. They knew that Corin had foretold this man's arrival, but for it to occur so quickly was slightly unnerving. "Good. I have traveled far to meet many of you," the man said with a respectful bow. "I need your help, sire." "What would you ask of us?" Robin asked. "Many of the shepherds are still mending the land after our world was ravaged by the fell dragon, but we shall do what we can to help you." "I know of your previous battles." Anankos nodded somberly. "It is one of the main reasons that I sought you out. I cannot say more, but I need the help of 6 shepherds, or else a great cataclysm shall fall on innocent people." Robin and Crom exchanged a look. Then the Exalt asked, "Whose assistance do you require, or shall we find volunteers for you?" He didn't like the idea of sending his shepherds away with this strange man, but he had given Corin his word that they would trust him. Besides, it wasn't like the shepherds were helpless. If this man turned out to be untrustworthy, they could deal with it. I know the names of the men and women that I seek. Anankos nodded. I seek Owain, Severa, Inigo, Sinon, and the twins known as Yuki and Aiko. Really? Kirito asked with a raised eyebrow. You want Inigo? Kirito, Crom said with a roll of his eyes. You know his skill with a sword. Other than Lucina and Owain, few can match him from the younger generation. Not to mention most of Ylisse. I also know about his skills with the ladies, the Black Swordsman shrugged. Just saying. They are probably better candidates that he could find. I am sure that he is one of the people I need. Anankos chuckled softly. I assure you, his talents will be of great help. Oh, that doesn't sound ominous, Klein muttered. Can you tell us for how long they'll be gone for? Honestly, Anankos said with a shake of his head, I have no idea. There is every chance that they may never return. Kirito frowned, his reluctance to let his friends go off with the stranger growing. Do they get a say in the matter? Of course. Anankos nodded quickly. I understand your reluctance, especially given how little I've told you. I wish I could say more, but I simply can't. The only thing that I can tell you is that if they don't come with me, many people will die. That puts us in quite a bind, pal. Klein frowned. I know. Anankos nodded somberly. Crom mulled it over for a few moments before he said, I gave my word to someone that I owe you, that I would trust you when the time came. I will allow those that you have selected to accompany you, barring any objections that they may have. I can ask no more, Anankos said with a bow. Thank you, Exalt. Thank me by seeing to it that they make it home, should they go with you, Crom said stiffly, though he did return a head nod. I shall do my best. Owain, Inigo, and Yuki all had no objections to accompanying Anankos in his request. Are you sure about this? Asuna asked her friend. He did say that we might never see you again. She and the leaders of the shepherds were talking to the ones that Anankos had selected for his quest, each of them trying to determine whether or not it was a good idea for them to go. Come on, Asuna. Yuki grinned. We trusted the shepherds. Look how that turned out. I'm sure we'll be fine, don't you worry. I'm not so sure about this, Aiko muttered. Last time we had a divine dragon telling us which path to take. How do we know this won't turn into some kind of trap? We don't, Inigo grinned widely. That's half the fun. Come now, we've been having adventure after adventure since each of us arrived here. What's one more? Sinon muttered as she eyed the young man coolly. You just want an excuse to go on a journey surrounded by mostly females, don't you? Ouch! Inigo said with mock indignation. That was cold, even for you. I assure you I meant every word. Uh-huh, she said with a roll of her eyes. Looking over at Kirito, who appeared to be in deep thought, she strode towards him, then looked over at Asuna with a question in her eyes. Go ahead, the other woman nodded. Thanks, she grinned. Walking up to her old partner, she smacked him on the shoulder and said, Hey, I might be taking off with this guy, you know. Anything on your mind as to why I shouldn't go? Huh? He blinked, confused for a second. Before she could berate him, he quickly recovered and said, Well, other than the fact that I'll be worried about you and the others, not really. Seriously? She asked, surprised. Yeah, he nodded heavily. I mean, I don't like it, but you've grown a lot since GGO. I know you can take care of yourself. Besides, you'll have the others with you, so it's not like you're alone in this. Wow, I didn't know you thought that highly of me, she smirked. I thought you were going to always protect me, no matter what. He grinned sheepishly. I really want to, but I guess one thing Mataris taught me was that if you try to protect everyone, it doesn't always end well. Sometimes you need to learn when to let go and trust that the people you love can take care of themselves. 2 years ago, she would have thought that he was taking a pass at her with that statement. Now, however, she knew better. Kirito loved his friends like they were his family, and that was that. Thanks, partner. She grinned back at him. Holding up a fist, she said, I'll be back. Promise. You'd better, he said as he bumped fists with her. Otherwise, I'm going to have to track down this Anankos guy down myself. And I don't think Asuna would like that too much, especially since Mako is around now. So, you're going to go with him? Klein said, rubbing his neck nervously as he looked at his daughter. It's not like we're in the middle of a worldwide crisis anymore, Severa shrugged. I'm not much good at anything other than combat, so if this guy needs a hand, I don't see why I shouldn't go help him. I know, but... Her father mumbled at a loss for words. Severa huffed and put her hands on her hips as she said, I'll be fine, really. I grew up in a hell on earth, remember? I seriously doubt whatever this Anankos person has to fight could be worse than Grima. I know, but I'm your dad, Klein said sadly. It's weird for me, and I can't help but worry about you. It's not that I doubt you or anything, I just... Daddy, Severa said sharply, causing his breath to hatch and his eyes to widen. Stepping forward, she seized him in a rough hug as she said, I will be fine. I'm your daughter. I have quite a few advantages that most people don't because of that. Like my smooth talking? He joked weakly as he returned the embrace, a tear seeping out of his eye as his heart swelled with pride. Ha ha, she said dryly as she squeezed him a little harder. I'll do you proud, Daddy. You and Mom both. And I'll come back, promise. That's all I ask. He sniffed, holding his little girl tight and wishing that he would never have to let go. When the group stood before Anankos again, the 6 warriors he had selected were fully dressed in their battle gear, travel packs on their shoulders. So, you have all decided to come? He asked hopefully. We have, Sinon nodded. Prior to their coming out to meet the man, it had been decided among them and their leaders that she should be the leader for the group of the quest. Owain had protested a bit, saying that one who could pierce the face with his very hand should be the leader of such a noble group, but he had been quickly overruled. Thank you, the man said with a profound relief. I assure you, I will repay your kindness as best I can when the time comes. Understand this, Anankos, Crom said warningly before they got carried away. Robin, Kirito, Klein, and I are in agreement. If we find any reason to believe that you have deceived us or intend to harm them, we will hunt you down and punish you accordingly. And we know about the Outrealms, too, Klein added with a grim smile, so even if you tried hiding in there, we'd find you eventually. I understand. Anankos nodded, though he appeared unfazed by the threat. I will accommodate to the best of my ability to see them safely return to you before that time. Then we understand one another. Robin nodded with a slight bow. For the sake of our friends, I hope that misfortune does not befall you. For the sake of many more, so do I. Anankos sighed quietly. With a slight gesture, he said to the chosen warriors, Come, we have a long way to go, and not much time to get there. Ha ha! They heard Owain crow as they all followed him after waving goodbye one last time. Let the chroniclers of many ages come to prepare, for the scion of legend has once more set out to change fate! Do you think they'll be okay? Klein asked his best friend. As long as Sinon doesn't kill Owain, I think they'll be alright. Kirito grinned wryly. Between her and your daughter, I almost pity whoever is causing Anankos' people to suffer. Klein said with a matching smile. Yeah, you're right, buddy.